Hello, everyone. Today I am here to share my thoughts and appreciation for the wonderfully, bountifully inspiring new record created by Scottish UK musician Emeli Sandé. This is her fourth studio album, if you don't count her EP, which she has also released. And it's 10 years since her debut, Our Version of Events, which was a critically acclaimed Billboard chart topping album that most people know of her from. But she's definitely faded a little bit into obscurity in the mainstream consciousness over the last decade since, and I find that to be quite a pity. Her style of R&B pop music, it's a blend of both. There's a bit of techno electronic glitch to her music, but there's also a gospel piano influence. She marries those worlds so wonderfully. There's some hip hop influence as well. She creates such an immersive soundscape of inspiration, music that just soothes the soul and feels so uplifting and warm and friendly and cognizant and poignant. Her lyrics are always speaking of overcoming adversity, but yet you can place herself into any of these narratives. Maybe they're a bit generic in times and they're very open, like a motivational poster. But there's something about her voice that brings you back, like a fulcrum to the center. I'm going to be honest with you. This album, I went in with slightly lower expectations, considering I felt like the lead singles we were getting were not necessarily showing exactly the scope of this record. I think that Brighter Days, which was the second single we got, was the one that made me think the most, the one that had me a little bit reserved about this record, because let's be real, her last album, Real Life, which came out in 2019, which I have also reviewed on this channel, was full of these gospel inspirational pop tunes, very like major key and just full of life and zest for life and inspiration. And sometimes I was like, I don't know if I'm in the right headspace for this music. Like I would only find myself listening to a few of the songs most of the time because as much as we all need a pick me up sometimes, the energy was just hard to match in my mood. And Brighter Days sounds exactly like, a extra cut from that record. And so Brighter Days was like, okay, we've seen this version before. We've gotten highs and lows. We've gotten You Are Not Alone. We have gotten these versions of songs before. But then Family was a little bit more interesting. It was the lead single that was released in September, and it features her with contemporary dancers in an urban environment, really embodying viscerally this emotive, heavily produced ambient techno pop urban track produced by Henry Davies, which has a dark tectonic feel to it underneath the lyrical reflections on the state that Emeli is coming to this album in. She sings, "A red light or dark night can stop me. No wall, no matter how tall, can block me. Well, the sun is out and the family's good and we're living life like we always knew we could. It's lovely. I took a little time out just to meditate, and my spirit said, why you always late? I'm sorry. I've got a need for speed and a head for dreams, but I had to slow down, see the wood for the trees, breathe easy. But now my energy's on 110, and I'm never going to let them bring me down again, believe me." And then the song takes off. The vocoder, heavily auto-tuned production on her vocals is a definite experimental step for Sandé. That's something we haven't seen so much of her utilized. But I actually think it's a really interesting breath of fresh air for her sort of brand of alternative hip hop urban R&B. It straddles this line between something a little bit more beat driven and something more lyrically and chorusly, like powerfully belted chorus driven. And so I think that it opens up this sort of possibility or realm of possibilities for this album that employ things that I think are so interesting sonically for her. We've got these orchestral motifs. We've got the piano. We've got the balladry. We've got the spunky, summertime electro pop production. We have the dark, clamoring guitars. We have 80s synths. We have so much coming into the fray here that you can dance to. We've got Latin guitar riffs. This album is a real treat and feast of different sonic elements that come together under an overarching theme of empowerment and resilience. And this time around, compared to Real Life, I feel like I'm a little bit more at home with the emotional sort of gravity that is being explored here. I just can sense the real essence of Emeli through these songs. Not that I couldn't from her last album, but this album truly feels like more melodramatically exposing the raw feelings and emotions, like what she really needs to get out her chest. Way that I think is more esoteric and heightened than she has achieved in some of her more recent outputs. I really do love all of her records. It's really hard for me to say that one is stronger than the other, but our version of events is so iconoclastic. It's so didactic, and it is so timeless for its unapologetic gospel songwriting prowess. And I think this album is definitely in the veins of that album in terms of having such a statement, in terms of encompassing so many different styles, in terms of focusing on just really being there for the music. And Emeli is just, I think, shining more than ever. And the producers are also amping up the heat. It's important to note that Emeli actually has production credits on the second track, which is called Look What You've Done, featuring the rapper JK. It almost brought tears to my eyes hearing the symphonic melodic swell of this record compared with the electronic beat production. It's something so organic out of something so synthetic that just soars off the page. And the melody is just really sticking. She really sticks the landing on all of this. When you mouth the words, you feel all empowered. I don't know what else to say. I'm going to repeat myself a lot on a lot of these tracks, and I don't want to be a broken record, but I just feel so empowered. Maybe it's just the time of my life that I'm in, or the time that all of us are in, coming out of so much uncertainty and a dark, dark winter. We all just want to see the wood for the trees, for example, and feel an inner power within us that doesn't feel like it's being marred by outside persuasion or influence. But amidst that is uncertainty in relationships. And this is something that, Emeli has kept close to herself a lot, but I think she's really exposed. She did recently just come out as bisexual with her partner, and this album is in a lot of ways a tribute to her. I would argue that this song is obviously a direct inspiration. Wow, this is a feeling I couldn't imagine I'd ever feel. And it's not usually like me to stutter my words, to lose out on sleep. On the third track, July 25th, Emeli takes us on an experimental classical interlude, which takes this melody and soars it up beyond just pop production into a beautiful piece of classical music. And it shows her love of the art form itself, because as she takes a date that is very special to them in their relationship. It's probably some form of an anniversary for them, a moment where they took that leap in their relationship. And it was scary. You can tell that in the melody. But the melody is, as melodramatic as it is so hopeful of things to come. Track number 4, Oxygen, was by the point where I was completely hooked. The understated hip-hop bass movement that matches her metered, reflective delivery is chef's kiss. It's all or nothing, as she describes the writing process for Oxygen to be. She met this producer called Fallen, who just had this sparse beat kind of echoing out and reverbed, and she was just like, I can build a tapestry around this of devotional lyrics. On track number 5, Summer, we take an even more auto-tuned, almost a cappella, jazzy kind of direction. Now, I'll be honest, this song for me melodically is probably the weakest on the record. It follows the most unconventionally from a traditional pop melody. And, in an album that is full of so much triumphant, glossy pop, it does stick out just a smidge. I'm not saying I don't like it. I just need a little bit more time with this one. Always summer every time you come over. I just wish I felt a little bit more summer in the instrumentation. In some ways, I feel like My Pleasure, the next song, is definitely a little bit more evocative of a summer breezy afternoon. This is definitely an Ariana Grande, Mariah Carey inspired song. There are actually moments where her vocals are getting so soft and R&B that I can't tell if it really is Ariana or Emeli. That's not to say that she sounds like she's impersonating those artists, but she's definitely in a little bit more of a, Emily's usually in a bit more of a lower chest voice kind of domain when she's, projecting. And in this one, she's really letting her head voice, her softer kind of flirty kind of intonation take control. She comes across a lot more laid back and just chilling. She's just chilling on this track. And honestly, it's the ultimate vibe. It's nothing to phone home about. It's just a fun song with some fun, catchy production. But in the context of the whole record, I think it's a nice kind of breath of breather from the, more urgent melodrama that is brewing around it. Because then we go into There Isn't Much. There is and there isn't much I could say about this track, but I do think ultimately this is my favorite on the record. This was one of the singles we had leading up to it. And when this one did come out, I was like, all right, Miss Emeli, Miss Sandé, you have my attention. I am so excited for this entire project. There Isn't Much is a 80s synth kind of electric guitar laden song with a melody that packs a punch just as it needs to as it crescendos and adds more vocal choral layering to it. Because no matter who I love and no matter who I touch, I'm afraid there isn't much without you. In the verses, she opines about all of the ways that she seems to be tackling life, grabbing everything that she can around her to find satisfaction. But at the end of the day, there's this gaping, missing piece that negates all of the things around her that should be bringing her joy and satisfaction. And you can feel that dissonance. You can feel that missing piece weighing over her in the melody and in the way she delivers these lines. Because this song is like learning to take off amidst tears in its eyes. That's the best way that I can describe it, because it's a very sad song sonically and in the melody and in the lyrical content, but at the same time is rising to a chorus that just adds like fuel beneath its wings as it continues. It's so triumphant at the same time and sure of itself. This melody is so well crafted. I don't know, I could harp on about it for far too long, but give it a listen, because I mean, you're going to just feel inspired. You're going to feel uplifted, even though you're going to be relating to every lyric and you're going to be like, yes, that's so painfully true. None of this matters if you, the person on my brain, are not in part of this. None of the things that seemed or were things I once wanted, things that everyone thinks I'd like, they don't mean anything. And this song just conveys that emotion like nothing I've heard before in a pop song. Honestly, it's divine. I don't know. It's the chords. It's the September 8th. Emeli admits this is another special date for her and her lover. A date that's marking more of a celebratory, we've got this energy. It's a little more confident. And it's just a kind of R&B slice of the melody that we get in Look Into My Eyes, the up-tempo Booker T produced R&B anthem. This is probably one of the most slick pop songs on the record, one of the most dance floor ready. Lyrically, there's not a lot there, but it's a good time on the dance floor. And it's definitely it's definitely got a bit of 70s energy, I feel, to it. Ready to Love is interesting because Emeli talks about how no one's really wanting to powerfully belt and emote anymore in songs. Restraint in vocals is something that's kind of in vogue. So you do the Ariana sort of softer, sort of controlled vocal runs instead of letting you're letting your vocal cords expand as to their fullest and explode in these long lasting notes and chords. And so Ready to Love sounds like an 80s Whitney Houston propane fueled explosive ballad. And she just wanted that energy to just allow the song to expand into its own like dizzying spectacle of self. And so I find this truly addicting. I do think it's a breath of fresh air from today's minimalist sort of vocal pop that we get. The soulful, explosive vocals are truly impressive. And this is one that would obviously be very difficult to sing, but I know that she is fully capable of doing live, and I would love to see it. This is one of those moments where this song would just absolutely kill on stage. And if she can hold these notes and sustain them like she does on the studio track, bellissimo. I'm ready to love again. You feel it in the hopeful melody. It's just everything imbued in the optimistic, positive tone. Wait for Me, we've got that island Caribbean sway and that is light on its feet. Say that you'll wait for me. I promise that I'll never take too long. Baby, say you'll pray for me. I think about me when I'm gone. Please just keep the lights on. Soon enough, I'll be coming home. Just learn to be patient. And she makes that statement like it's not a thing in the world, because honestly, you're just going to be dancing away. You ain't going to worry about it. Track number 12, another one. This is probably one of the songs on the record that reminds me the most of our version of events, because of just the raw and personal piano balladry that she's serving us. Not another one, not another gun, not another son. That's a lot of blood. You can see where this is going here. Ain't we proved enough? If you cut us once, we gonna bleed the same old losing game. Yet you still in doubt what you talking about. That man's innocent. He's a human being. We are human beings. No, I can't take it. I can't take another one. She pleads in the chorus, which, from the perspective of racial injustice in this country, another Black man is shot. George Floyd had a lot of inspirational impetus for this song for her. It's one of the few times she does write from a bit more of a Black woman's perspective, something that, artists might want more from her. But I think that the universality about her music is not something to knock her for. But it's also important for her to express these burdensome thoughts that are on a lot of our minds going through what we've been through. In verse number 2, she shifts the perspective away from Black men being shot on the street to Black mothers who are far more likely to die during childbirth. It is unfortunately statistically proven in this country. They are not given the same level of health care, and it is not as safe for them to bear children to this day. Not another one, not another mum loses her life at birth 5 times likelier if your skin is richer in melanin. Still, they ask if racism is still a thing. It's so insulting, people suffering. They don't hear me, so I'll repeat again. We are human beings. This song says exactly what it needs to say, with that, soulful crooning R&B reflection that is so Emeli, and it suits her very well. Yes, You Can is a song, I'll be honest, in its over-the-top, pretentious production, I had a tiny bit of a hard time getting into. There's almost a marching drum-like repetition to the electronic chorus, the electronic synths that march through this track. Don't it feel like light at the end of tunnels getting even harder to believe in? Like the days are merging into one, and spring could just be any other season now. Does it feel like you were trying to learn to swim but somehow landed in the deep end and you are running out of faith? You'll ever find a way to complete your mission now? Well, guess what? Yes, you will. Yes, you can. Find the strength in you deep within, even though it feels like quicksand. Don't lose faith. You will rise again. She's not going for melody here. She's going for commanding, mantra-like lyrics that will get stuck in your head long enough to kind of finally maybe seep into your system. This is a plea to believe in yourself when you are at the pinnacle of crisis. And the urgency and poignancy of the lyrics and of the production that's behind this one, I think, is apt for so many of us in our lives right now. I mean, I certainly listen to this, and it just wants you to shake you out of the sleepwalk. It just wants you to wake up and take control. And the thing I always have sometimes with these, glasses half full, just be positive in the face of everything else going negative kind of songs, is I do wonder, you say it like it's so easy, and you even admit that it's not easy. But do I really believe that it's possible? When she sings that brighter days are really going to come, as she sings in the following song, which she obviously wanted to put right after this one, to sort of show that you go through that long, dark night of the soul, and you say no to those negative thoughts, and you collect yourself, and you triumph over them. Brighter days are going to come. There is that pessimistic side of me that thinks, well, this is nice to believe, and I know I should believe it. It is the only sort of logical step to getting me out of depression here. I'm not going to just wallow in depression and depressive thoughts, but I still don't have fully the faith that I know brighter days will come. But that's something I've had to kind of reflect a lot on with myself, because in some ways, it's the hope of it that is the most important in getting you out of those darkest places. Of course, we all want those brighter days to come. We all want to make sure they do materialize, but we cannot guarantee that they're going to manifest in the way that we anticipate them to. Sometimes the universe, oftentimes, works in ways we don't expect. And when you expect things of the universe, that's when things start to go awry. So I've had to learn that the brighter days might not necessarily look like how I've always fantasized them to be. They might actually be the sort of thing that you have to sit and think about. Wait, actually, things are actually not too bad right now. Maybe these are the brighter days that I was always looking for back then. Because if you keep thinking the brighter days are ahead of you, you never look at the present, you're going to miss those brighter days that you once longed wished for if you just keep adding more expectations to them as you go through life. And that's something that I'm trying to work through. I kind of wish that these songs explored that a little bit more instead of just so blatantly like saying, no, shut up, think positive. But I do get the urgency of the positivity here. I do understand, and I can't fault Emeli for that. There is a much bigger plan, but don't get too caught up in how that plan is going to look as if you govern every single detail of it, because a lot of it is out of your control. And if you just let positive thinking govern your action and your reaction to all the stimuli and things that happen to you, you will be taken care of. You will be taken care of. It's that faith that you'll be guided without sort of knowing to the place you always needed to be. And that might not necessarily look like from point A what point B should have been to you then. When you finally are at point B and you take stock of where you were from point A, you'll suddenly realize, I was meant to go to this place. Okay, I'm going to look at all the reasons why this is better than back then. I'm going to take stock of all the positive things I have. And the more you do that, the more positive stuff you'll find under the surface. That's how I think this whole journey is meant to go. Sorry, I just had to tangent into that, but it's apt for the thematic suggestions of all these songs. Superhuman is one of the other like bubbly kind of uplifting ones. It's a catchy melody. Baby, is it worth giving your life to something that you wouldn't die for? Is it worth spending your time on something you ain't got time for? For someone that won't even fight for you? Don't forget who you are. You're made up of a million kind of stars. Your heart's beating faster than the light runs. Don't forget that you're superhuman. I don't know if the heart is necessarily beating faster than the speed of light, because that would be insanely fast, but the metaphor is there. Your heart keeps thumping, just like the light keeps shining. Don't forget who you are. You are superhuman, flesh and bones and raw emotion, raised endorphins. She's, calling upon her medical background here a little bit, she says in talking about this track, because she actually did study medicine at the University of Glasgow. In case being a singer-songwriter didn't work out, she had that background, that perspective of how miraculous the human body is and the human spirit. The final track, which I think closes out the album perfectly, is the slightly more understated piano-driven melody of World Go Round. Solar system, stop and listen. Every time you softly whisper, you got superpowers. We've had magic hours. You're all-knowing, and I know your love. Oh, it's enough to make the world go round. She could be singing about a higher power, but I think that she is singing about her partner at the end of the day. In this case, she is happily with her, and although you can construe this to be about the universe and about God, it feels more intimate here. It feels more dedicational to a special someone who your love for them is always something you want to shout from the rooftops. It is enough to keep you wanting to keep going. And it's the testament and power of love. So this album is, look, lyrically, it's not something that I am calling the most profound, but it is something that I am calling prescient. I think that we still, I don't know. I think that there is very much a heart and genuine sincerity to Emeli's music that doesn't feel sullied by expectation of commerciality. She doesn't sing songs that are about topics that sound like trendy. She's always just going to sing sincere, inspirational, motivational, emotional, love-torn, relatable power ballads. And that's something that, like an old friend, you can always come back to, as one reviewer aptly put. So this album feels like a reuniting with that side of yourself that's just looking for some hope. And at the end of the day, I always get that feeling from her music. And she just really has a knack for songs. I think that she really has a knack for using her voice as an instrument for lifting us up. And she takes all these different inspirations of R&B and soul and pop. It's a really wonderful package here. Let's say, for instance, that tomorrow is going to be a better day. That's how I interpret that album title. And that's very clear, I think, from the message she's giving us. So in my opinion, this is her strongest record since Our Version of Events. And it is the one that it is now going to stick up in the top of my mind when I think of Emeli Sandé. And I just so wish she was not so criminally slept on by the masses today. I don't know how it is in the UK, that she might be a little bit more promoted, but in the US, no one is checking for her. This album was not even on the Apple Music front page on release day. I mean, it's so sad that she's gotten so buried. And there is so much of the Alicia Keys and Beyonce and Whitney Houston legacy that is like in her music that is being overlooked. And so I'm always going to, it's one of the reasons why I make sure to spotlight her on this channel, not just because I just truly do love the record, but because she just needs more voices to word of mouth her music. My favorite song, There Isn't Much. Second favorite, Look What You've Done. Third, Oxygen. July 25th will go to fourth. And then I'd suppose my fifth favorite might be Ready for Love. I think I'd say that's my fifth favorite, but it's really hard to say. Like I said, if I had to pick a skip, it might be Summer and it might be Superhuman, just because Superhuman, the production and polish of it isn't as there as I'd like it to be. Her vocals, it's a little overkill at that point, you know, coming from Yes You Can and Brighter Days into Superhuman. Superhuman falls a little bit lower for me, but that's just a personal preference. Let me know your thoughts of the record. What are your favorite songs? If you've just checked her out, let me know if you're into her, if this video turns you on to her music. I will link in the description my reviews of all of her other 3 studio albums: Real Life, Long Live the Angels, and her debut, as well as her EP from 2017, Kingdom Coming. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful, blessed day. Peace, love, and light. Bye.